Yes, we are live now. Okay. You can start.
Okay. Adarsh, can you confirm once if I'm audible and the screen is visible? Okay. Hi guys, so today we are going to begin with our another top gear test discussion, and the topic for today's discussion is going to be international relations, security and science and technology. So I'm going to begin with the international relations and security discussion. I'll take around 8 questions. So I'll begin with that now. Now, if you see, with respect to international relations, the prelims syllabus does not specifically mention as to what we should study in this regard. So, from our main syllabus, we can extrapolate a few topics that we can study even for our prelims. Now, based on that, you can see that there are 7 areas that can be identified for international relations. Now, within these 7 areas, if I tell you with respect to prelims, the 2 areas which has been a really favorite for UPSC prelims has been this regional organizations and global organizations. These are the 2 areas from where most of the questions of international relations have been asked so far. And since 2014 onwards, around 5 to 6 questions are generally asked from international relations. And the questions are not that difficult. So if you prepare some of the topics well, especially those organizations which are in news, you can easily fetch at least 10 to 12 marks from this section. Now, if I'm saying that regional organization and global organizations are important, then what are the areas that we have to keep in mind when we study these organizations? One is you have to be aware of the members of these organizations. Another area from where questions asked is whether India is a member of any of these organizations or not, or if India is a full-time member, is it an observer state, is it an associate member? These kind of questions are also asked. Second, as to whether it is linked to any prominent organization. For example, you need to know what are the specialized organs of UN. So this becomes another area. Another thing is you need to know whether the organization is an intergovernmental organization or is it a non-governmental organization or a civil society organization. Then we need to know what are the key objectives of the organization. Then if there have been any recent summit in news from that organization and some important reports. So whenever you're studying the global or regional organization, if you divide your notes on these lines, then you can more prepare for any kind of question that will come in prelims from these organizations. So starting with the first question for today, the first question that we have before us is related to the Financial Action Task Force. The Financial Action Task Force is often in news with respect to Pakistan, especially. So let's see what the question is asking us. It is asking that recently the Financial Action Task Force has put Pakistan on grey list, and which of the following statements are correct? You have to also keep in mind as to whether the question is asking you to identify the correct statement or the incorrect statement. So let's see the first statement. It is an intergovernmental body established in 1989 during the G7 summit. So as I told you, it is important for us to know the nature of an organization. So here it is absolutely correct that it is an intergovernmental body and it was established in 1989. This statement is also correct during the G7 summit. So this statement becomes correct. Now, coming to the second statement, as we discussed, is it is important for us to know what kind of association India has with that organization. Here it is saying that India is an observer member of it. This becomes incorrect. India is not an observer member. India is a full-time member, and India also enjoys voting rights. Then the third statement is saying that its secretariat is located at the OECD headquarters in Paris. This statement is also absolutely correct. So based on this, we know that the second statement is incorrect. So we can eliminate option 1, option 3 as well. And as both 1 and 3 are correct, 4 is going to be the correct answer here. Now let's see a few more things about the Financial Action Task Force. What is the mandate of this organization? The mandate of this organization is to create certain standards and operational measures related to money laundering, one area. Second area is terrorist financing. And the third area is any other related threat that hampers the integrity of the international financial system. So these are the three broad areas where FATF works. Now, two things that you will hear most often with respect to the FATF is the gray list and the black list. So what are these two lists about? When we say the gray list, when any country is placed in the gray list, it means that that country is acting as a safe haven for supporting terror funding and money laundering. And putting a country in the gray list serves as a warning. So, what happens when a country is in the gray list? There is a certain action plan that is provided to the country, and that country is expected to follow that action plan and report to the FATF as to what it has been doing to implement that action plan. So currently there are around 15 countries that are there in the FATF gray list, including Pakistan. After the gray list comes the black list. If the country, even after being put in the gray list, is acting in a non-cooperative way, then that country can be put in the blacklist. And this is when the country is openly supporting terror funding and money laundering. Currently, only two countries are a part of the blacklist, that is North Korea and Iran. So this is all about the FATF. Now let's see, another thing about FATF you have to know is that there are certain regional organizations that also support the activities of the FATF. They are associated with the FATF. So there is one for Asia Pacific, for Caribbean, for Eurasian. So when with respect to Pakistan, along with the FATF, the Asia Pacific Group on Money Laundering supports the activities of the FATF. And the headquarters of this group is located in Sydney. And there are 9 such regional bodies that support the activities of the FATF. Coming to the next question, that is question number 15. This is related to India, Bangladesh and the Sri Lanka and the Shimla Agreement. India, Bangladesh has recently been in news as well. So let's see what this question is asking us. The first thing is, India and Bangladesh do not have any formal water sharing agreement. Now, this statement might seem correct because we often hear about the Indus Water Treaty, but we generally do not come across the India-Bangladesh water sharing treatment. But let me tell you that this statement is absolutely incorrect because India and Bangladesh do have a water sharing agreement, and I'll just tell you about it. And the second statement is related to the Shimla Agreement. And this is telling that India and Pakistan recognized Bangladesh as a country through the Shimla Agreement. This statement is also absolutely incorrect. It is true that the Shimla Agreement was signed after the 1971 war, that led to the formation of Bangladesh, but it had nothing to do with recognition of Bangladesh. Pakistan recognized Bangladesh a few years later. So both the statements in this question are incorrect, and the answer here is going to be 4. So let's see a little bit more about these two things. Now, India and Bangladesh share a water sharing agreement that is known as the Ganga water sharing agreement. Now, why was the Ganga water sharing agreement signed? It was signed after India built the Farakka barrage. The Farakka barrage is basically meant for diverting water from Ganga to the Hooghly River, and this is to allow the flushing out of sediments from the Kolkata harbor. Now, because India was diverting water from Ganga, there was concern in Bangladesh because it is the lower riparian state that it will affect the water flow of Ganga in Bangladesh. So, because of that, we signed the Ganga Water Sharing Agreement. It was signed in the year 1996 by Prime Minister Devegowda and Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. And it is a 30-year water sharing agreement. So, it will expire in the year 2026. And these are some of the other information about this water sharing agreement. This water sharing agreement recognized the rights of Bangladesh as a lower riparian state. Coming to the Shimla Agreement, one important thing that you have to remember with respect to the Shimla Agreement, that prior to the Shimla Agreement between India and Pakistan, we had a ceasefire line since 1948. This ceasefire line was redesignated as the LOC that we hear nowadays through the Shimla Agreement. So, this is one important point to know about the Shimla Agreement. And the Shimla Agreement was overall, it was about mutual commitment to a peaceful resolution of all the issues between India and Pakistan. So it had nothing to do with respect to recognition of Bangladesh, as was mentioned in the question. So both the statements here become incorrect. Coming to the next question, this is related to APPA, and let's see what it is asking us. As per the Act, the power to declare disturbed area lies with the governor of a state, the administrator of a union territory, or the central government, as the case may be. Yes, we know that under the APPA Act, it can be imposed in any area that has been declared as disturbed area. And as the statement correctly mentioned, a disturbed area can be declared by the governor of the state, by the administrator of a union territory, or the central government. So the entire thing that is given here is correct. Then the second statement is saying that it is mandatory for army officers to hand over the persons arrested by them under the act to the police station. This statement is also correct. The third statement is saying that prior sanction is required to prosecute army officers in case when he has acted in exercise of powers conferred under the act. We know that this act is giving certain special powers to the armed forces, and this is one of such special powers. So all the three statements that are given here are correct, and the answer here is going to be 4. So let's see a few other things here. So it gives the armed forces the power to maintain public order in disturbed areas. And what are some of these special powers? So for example, they can prohibit a gathering of 5 or more people. They can open fire after giving due warning. It also gives them the power to arrest a person without warrant. So these are some of the special powers that have been given to the armed forces to maintain law and order in these disturbed areas. The next question is related to the International Criminal Court. What is this asking us? That the jurisdiction of the court extends to genocide, crimes against humanity, or war crimes which are committed on or after 1st July 2002. Now, when it comes to the International Criminal Court, the parent treaty that led to the establishment of the International Criminal Court is known as the Rome Statute. And as the statement correctly mentions, it gives the International Criminal Court jurisdiction over crimes against humanity, war crime, and genocide. And there is another one, that is crimes of aggression. Now, if the statement had the word only here and these three were mentioned, then it would have been incorrect because the fourth one has been left out in this statement. And what is so special about this date, 1st July 2002? It was on this date that the Rome Statute was ratified by around 60 countries. So it came into effect on this date. And it does not have any retroactive jurisdiction. That is, only those crimes that have been committed on or after this date can be investigated and taken up by the ICC, not prior to this date. The second statement is saying that there is no provision of appeal against this decision. This statement is incorrect. There is an appeals chamber in the ICC, so there is a provision of appeal. The third statement is saying that India is not a party to the Rome Statute. This statement is absolutely correct. India is not a party to it. So the second statement becomes incorrect, but the first and the third statement are correct. So 3 becomes the answer. Let's see a few more things. Now, ICC, as we already discussed, it mentions crimes related to genocide, war crime, crimes against humanity, and crimes of aggression. Now, the reason why ICC was in news was because of certain sanctions that were imposed on ICC activities by the Trump administration. The reason being that now ICC can only investigate cases in those countries that are its member states. So only the crimes that are committed by the nationals of the countries which are member states of the ICC has jurisdiction only over those aspects. But there is a small caveat here, and it mentions that even if the crimes are committed on the territory of a member state by the citizen of a country which is not a member state of the ICC, then the ICC can take up those cases. So what has happened here was that Afghanistan is a member of the ICC, and the ICC was investigating cases of war crimes by US soldiers in Afghanistan. And US is not a member of ICC. So this was the whole issue why the Biden administration was opposed to the activities of the ICC. And another thing to remember is that the International Criminal Court is not a UN organization, although it works in close cooperation and agreement with the United Nations. Very similar to ICC, you have another organization, that is the International Court of Justice. The International Court of Justice is an organ of the UN. And both the ICC and the International Court of Justice are based in Hague in Netherlands. But what is the difference between them? The ICJ, that is International Court of Justice, it settles disputes between countries. So these are some of the things about the International Criminal Court. The next question is about the Indian Ocean Commission. And what is this question asking? Only African island nations are members of the Indian Ocean Commission. Now, often we tend to think that statements having words like only or all are going to be incorrect. But in this case, this statement is absolutely correct. And we will see the members of the Indian Ocean Commission. The Indian Ocean Commission was institutionalized by the Victoria Agreement. Now, this statement till here is actually correct. It was institutionalized by the Victoria Agreement. But this next part of the statement, which is saying that it has its headquarters in Seychelles, this becomes incorrect because the headquarters are in Mauritius. India recently got associate member status in the Indian Ocean Commission. Now, the reason why the Indian Ocean Commission was in news was because that India did not get an associate member status, but an observer status. So as I mentioned to you earlier, it is important to know what is the nature of India's association with that organization. And it was formed to tackle piracy and secure safe sea lines of communication in the region. This statement is also absolutely incorrect. The reason why IOC was formed was more to do with cooperation, that is political cooperation, economic cooperation, sustainable development. It has nothing to do with piracy. So let's see what are the members of this commission. These are the 5 island nations of Africa, that is Seychelles, Comoros, Madagascar, Mauritius, and Reunion. Reunion is an overseas territory of France. And as you can see, the objectives here are all related to economic cooperation, political cooperation, and sustainable development, nothing to do with piracy and sea lines of communication. Next question is related to the Open Skies Treaty. Now, the Open Skies Treaty was in news because both US and Russia have decided to withdraw from it. So let's see what this question is asking us. It is a treaty during Cold War time which allows its signatory countries to conduct unarmed air surveillance flights over each other's territories. Now, the second part of the statement is actually correct. This is the purpose of the treaty, that is to conduct unarmed air surveillance over each other's territories. However, the first part of the statement is wrong. It was not signed during Cold War time. It was signed around the end of the Cold War, that is after the disintegration of the USSR. And if you try to think as to why this treaty was signed, it is being signed right after the end of the Cold War. And the Cold War, as you know, was a time of absolute mistrust and mutual misunderstanding. So, the reason behind this treaty was to eliminate such misunderstanding from the minds of the countries so that the countries do not think that the other country is preparing to go to war. And a country can undertake aerial imaging only with the consent of the host country. This statement is absolutely correct. So, two is correct, but let's see a few more things about the Open Skies Treaty. So, it was signed in 1992 between the NATO members and the former Warsaw Pact countries. There are 34 countries that are party to the treaty, but US and Russia have decided to withdraw from it. And why was it signed? So that they could carry out unarmed observation flight to collect images of each other's military activities. So this was kind of a confidence building measure in the times right after the Cold War and to eliminate a sense of misunderstanding among the countries. And here you can see how many open sky operations have been taken up so far. And also in today's times, this treaty may seem to be a little redundant because we have a lot of satellite imaging available now, and all this information can be gathered through satellite imageries as well. But if you see at the time of when it was signed in 1992, this was a very important treaty in the time right after the Cold War. The next question is related to the Arctic Council. And what is this question asking us? See, the first statement here is a very long statement, and generally, such long statements tend to either scare us or confuse us, and we don't know how to approach them. So, let's see what this statement is asking. It is saying that what is the purpose of the Arctic Council? Cooperation, coordination, interaction among the Arctic states, and involvement of Arctic indigenous communities. Now, if you don't know anything about the Arctic Council, this reference to the indigenous communities might seem to be incorrect, but it is actually absolutely correct. The Arctic Council also involves a lot of organizations that work with the indigenous communities in the region. But let's read the statement further. What are the issues that it is looking at? Sustainable development, okay, environmental protection, military security. Now, this word military security is what is making the statement incorrect. Even if you don't know about this council or you don't know in details about the objectives of this council, the word military security can act as a kind of red flag, because if you see, the Arctic Council is including the countries that are a part of the Arctic region. So the Arctic region as such does not face any military threat. So it's quite unlikely that military security is going to be the objective of such a council. And especially sustainable development, environmental protection, and military security do not even go well together. So this statement is incorrect. The second one is saying India is a member of the Arctic Council. India is definitely not a member of the Arctic Council. So even this statement is incorrect, and the answer here is going to be 4, neither 1 or 2. Now let's take a quick look. So the 8 states that are a part of the Arctic Council are Canada, Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, Russia, Sweden, and US. And it also has permanent participation from the indigenous people of the Arctic. And what are the areas where the Arctic Council is focused? You can see it is mostly related to sustainable development, biodiversity, and or mostly the environmental concerns and sustainable development. And India, of course, has an observer status in the council. So you can see that most of the questions that are being asked on the international organizations have at least one statement that is making a reference to what is the nature of India's association with that council. So even if you know that particular part, you can eliminate some of the options in the exam. Coming to the next question, this is related to the proposed multi-layered air defense shield for NCT, National Capital Territory of Delhi. Now, before I go ahead and read the statements that are there with this question, let me explain to you what this multi-layered air defense shield is. Just take a look at this picture. What is going to be the first step for any defense? First of all, remember that this is a defense mechanism that we are talking about. So what is going to be the first step for any defense mechanism? The first step is going to be to identify the threat, right? So here you can see that the moment there is an enemy missile launch, we have an airborne early warning and control system to identify the threat. And what is the purpose of this multi-layered air defense shield that we are talking about? This is to protect against any kind of airborne threat. That can be a helicopter, a missile, it can be an unmanned air vehicle, anything. So once the tracking has been done, then the third step is of a radar. So a long range tracking radar, what is this radar going to do? It will track the velocity and the direction of the object that is coming towards us. That it can be a missile. So for example, if it is a missile in this case, once it has been identified, the radar will track the velocity and the direction. Then comes the fourth step. Here another thing will happen, that is there will be a control radar that will lock the object that is coming. Then the fifth step will be the launch of an interceptor missile, and the last step will be the destruction of the missile. But let's see what are these various layers that we are talking about. What is this multi-layered defense shield? The first layer or the outermost layer is going to be a ballistic missile defense layer. This ballistic missile defense layer will offer us both endo and exo atmospheric protection, that is within as well as outside the atmosphere. Now, in this ballistic missile defense system, we have two phases. The first phase has interception capability up to 2000 kilometer, and phase 2 up to 5000 kilometer. Now, the question that we have is saying that the ballistic missile defense system is part of the innermost or the middle layer. So that becomes incorrect because it is the outermost layer of this defense system. Then coming to the second layer. So these are the extra long range surface to air missile. When we come to the tier 2, that is the second layer that you see here, this is the long range surface to air missile. Here you have your S-400 that we want to acquire from Russia. This has a range of up to 400 kilometers. Then comes the third layer, that is T3, where you have the medium range surface to air missile. Here you have the Barak that is being jointly developed by the Israeli Aerospace and DRDO. The range of this is up to 100 kilometers. Then the fourth layer, here you have the short range surface to air missile. Here the range is up to 60 kilometers. The innermost range, which is what you have here as T5, this is coming very close. So for this level, you need certain quick reaction system. And here we are having this National Advanced Surface to Air Missile System that we are trying to acquire from US. So this is basically the multi-layer system that we are talking about. Now, if you come to the question that is being asked, see, it's saying that the innermost and middle layer will be provided by the indigenous two-tier ballistic missile defense system. But we just now saw that the ballistic missile defense system is the outermost layer. So this statement definitely becomes incorrect. The second statement is saying that the integrated air defense weapon system, including S-400 missile, will form the outermost layer. Absolutely incorrect, because we saw that this was providing the fourth layer. And the outermost layer is the ballistic missile defense system. So this statement also becomes incorrect. So the answer here is going to be 4. That is neither 1 or 2. So that's all from my side, and those were the questions that I wanted to discuss. The remaining questions on international relations and security are going to be taken by Shashank Tyagi.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome you all to this discussion. This is Shashank. Thanks, Arpita. That was an insightful discussion. Please confirm if my voice is clear or not. Just mention yes in comments. Ayush, Vipin. Just mention yes in comments if my voice is clear. Thank you. So going ahead, our first question is, consider the following statements in relation to Interpol. So by now, you all know that within this international relations, you have to cover important global organizations, especially those who are in news from past 1 or 1.5 years, right? So recently, Interpol was in news. Why? Interpol informed that certain nations and their key organizations who are in front to fight against COVID are under threat from certain hackers. And when I'm saying certain hackers, so Interpol released a notice under purple notice. And within that, it was said that threat of ransomware are hovering over certain hospitals. Okay. So just look at these statements. First statement is, it issues yellow notice to track the wanted persons. So what would UPSC, what kind of information UPSC demand in questions like this? So UPSC wants to know whether you are aware about the type of notices that Interpol release and what are their different objectives. Okay. So here the statement is saying link between yellow notice and track the wanted person. This statement is incorrect because when we talk about track the wanted person, you must have heard about red corner notice. Let me show you the image also. Yeah. So this is the red notice or red corner notice released by Interpol for tracking the wanted person. Okay, it's not yellow notice. Second is, it issues purple notice to provide information on modus operandi, procedures, object, devices for hiding places used by criminals. So second statement is correct. Just take a look on type of Interpol notices. First is red notice to seek the location and arrest of the wanted persons with a view of similar extradition or similar lawful action. Yellow notice, which was asked in this question, it helped to locate missing persons, often minors, or to help identify persons who are unable to identify themselves. Just focus on the language. Then there is blue notice to collect additional information about a person's identity, location, or activities in relation to a crime. Then there is black notice to seek information on unidentified bodies. Green notice to provide warning and intelligence about persons who have committed criminal offenses and likely to repeat these crimes in other countries. Then there is orange notice to warn of an event, a person, an object, or a process representing a serious or imminent threat to a public safety. Then there is purple notice, which was part of this question, to seek or provide information on modus operandi, object, device, concealment methods used by criminals. For example, since certain hackers are about to use or in process of using ransomware to hack our hospital networks. So what does it mean? This notice is telling about the process they are going to use, the objects or devices which are under threat, and that is why second statement is correct. Okay. Then there is Interpol UN Security Council special notice issued for groups or individuals who are the target of UN Security Council Sanctions Committee. When it comes to headquarters, so headquarters of Interpol is in Lyon, France. So these are some basic details which you should know since Interpol was in news. Then there is Golan Heights. This question is based on map. Often seen in news is a disputed territory between Israel and which of the following? Since you are going to appear on 27 June, have this in mind that this map, and especially the map of West Asia, means other countries, for example, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, you should remember the boundaries and the areas which were in news. Okay. So as of now, this question is asking Golan Heights, is it between Israel and whom? So by this map, it is clear that it is Syria. Okay. So if I say a bit about Golan Heights, so it is possible that UPSC may ask question from Golan Heights, but not necessarily on a map. It may give some details in form of say 2 or 3 statements, and UPSC might ask which of the following statements are correct. For that, you should know that when it comes to Golan Heights, so it was acquired by Israel in 1967, 6 Days War. Details here. Okay, so Israel occupied Golan Heights, West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza Strip in 1967 6-day war. Although Syria tried to regain Golan Heights during 1973 Middle East War, but Syria was defeated at that time. Okay, later in 1974, there's an armistice, means stay on the status of the two forces. Then UN observer force has been in place on the ceasefire line, and you can check the ceasefire line. So this is the line where UN observer force are deputed. Okay, so this area is important. You also know that there was an incident in port of Lebanon, okay, a few months back. So considering these locations are in news, so we should know who are the boundary states, okay, and what are the major locations, okay. Second, next question is from PMLA. Under Prevention of Money Laundering Act, an offense of money laundering has been considered cognizable and non-bailable. When I say cognizable, what does it mean? It means arrest can take place even without a warrant, okay, without warrant. And non-bailable, it means you cannot claim that I need anticipatory bail. Anticipatory bail means before arrest, you apply for a bail. So this is not possible in case of PMLA. So this statement is correct. The rights and title of properties confiscated under PMLA are vested with central government. The statement is also correct. The appeal against appellate tribunal lies with Supreme Court only. So the word is only, and that's why this statement is incorrect, because this can be appealed in High Court. Okay, this can be appealed in High Court. If I ask, what is money laundering? What would be your response? Because my guess is that UPSC can make statement, and UPSC might try to confuse you between provisions of Prevention of Corruption Act and Prevention of Money Laundering Act. And I don't want that any one of you get confused in that room. What is money laundering? In simple words, I just want to know that you have understanding. You are not just cramming these provisions. Making black money white, yes, that is money laundering. Okay. When we are talking about money laundering, also remember the power of ED, Enforcement Directorate. Okay, because UPSC might try to confuse you that Enforcement Directorate comes under Ministry of Home Affairs. Because many times you open the newspaper and you find that, okay, this person is being arrested by Enforcement Directorate. And at subconscious level that students have this mindset, okay, since ED is making an arrest, So arrest is related to Ministry of Home Affairs, but that is going to be a wrong choice. So Enforcement Directorate comes under which ministry? My question. Fast. Come on. Purpose of asking these questions, not to check your knowledge or something. It is just to, get you into this curious mode that, okay, these are the angles from which question can be asked. Statements can be mixed. Yes, finance. Okay, now I'm making a statement and you have to mention the statement is true or false. Okay, so although I've said the third statement is incorrect and 1 and 2 are correct, so answer is 1 and 2. Now I'm making a change in third statement. Okay, so if UPSC make this third statement in this way, the appeal against appellate tribunal's decision can be taken up at the level of High Court only within 60 days of that decision. A statement is true or false. I am repeating the statement again. The appeal against appellate tribunal's decision can be taken up at the level of High Court only within 60 days of that decision. Statement is true or false. You can use Google also. Free to do that. Because purpose is that if you Google and you get into these details, at least you will remember. Come on, true, false, fast. Many people might be thinking, since sir has used, put extra stress on the word only, so that's why it may be incorrect. Supreme Court also, but first High Court, then Supreme Court. चलिए अभी suspense रखते हैं. Let it be a suspense. I'm going to open it. So if statement is like this, the appeal against appellate tribunal's decision can be taken up at higher authority only within 60 days. Okay. Yes, only here is for time. Correct, Lucky. So this statement is false. Why this statement is false? Because Prevention of Money Laundering Act also says that the matter can be taken up within 60 days at the higher appellate authority. It means here it can be taken up at the level of High Court within 60 days, but it also says that High Court can take up this matter even after 60 days if High Court finds reasonable grounds on it. Okay, so if a statement used by UPSC is the appeal against the appellate tribunal's decision can be taken up at the level of High Court within 16 days, then statement is correct. But if the word is only, then it becomes incorrect because it can be taken up after 60 days. But the point is, at that point, you cannot claim that I want this particular decision to be appealed at your level. No, at that time, High Court will decide, okay, whether there were some reasonable grounds of delay due to which you could not file an appeal between 60 days. Okay, if you got this correct, then mention confirm in comments. Okay, and whenever you will be, just Google it out, PMLA, then you can now clearly, see, okay, this is the statement, and after the 60-day statement, a small bracket, it is also clearly given that after 60 days, it is prerogative of High Court. So just mention confirm if you got this. Confirm. Now, with reference to BIMSTEC, consider the following statement. Its secretariat is located at Dhaka, Bangladesh. It's a factual thing. Yes, it is correct. It has formed a platform with SAARC and ASEAN member countries for intra-regional cooperation. Yes. So BIMSTEC was in news. Why BIMSTEC was in news? Because India's focus was tilting from SAARC to BIMSTEC in past few years. Why so? Because in SAARC, we have Pakistan. And with Pakistan, we have certain, knots in our relationship as of now, which are yet to be resolved. We all are aware about that. And that is why what India wants to engage more with South Asia as well as Southeast Asia. And that's why BIMSTEC is working as a bridge. Okay. So by this second statement is also correct. But when it comes to third statement, it says currently it is involved in trade, technology, transport, tourism, fisheries, energy sector only for sectoral cooperation. The word only is incorrect because as of now, there are 15 sectors of engagement within BIMSTEC. Okay. Ayush is asking, so second statement, how is second statement correct? Ayush, second statement is saying it has formed a platform with SAARC and ASEAN member countries for intra-regional cooperation. Okay, so it has formed a platform. So it is a platform. I'm telling you now, if you look in the membership, you have Thailand. Okay, so what India wants to do, India wants to bridge the gap which was there when it comes to South Asian politics. So BIMSTEC is a platform which is having South Asian members, as well as we are having engagements with ASEAN. Okay, and that is why second statement is correct. No, Ayush, Pakistan not a member. The Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical Economic Cooperation is a regional organization. It comprises of 7 countries. 5 of these 7 countries, India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, and Bangladesh, are from South Asia. Ayush, remember this. While the remaining 2, Thailand and Myanmar, okay, Thailand and Myanmar are from Southeast Asia. With a focus on inter-regional cooperation, the BIMSTEC has also formed a platform with SAARC and Association of Southeast Asian Nations member countries. So BIMSTEC has formed a platform. Hence, second statement is correct. In 1997, it started with just 6 sectors, later expanded to remaining 9 sectors in 2008. Currently, BIMSTEC is involved in 15 sectors. And in the third statement, the word was only. So that is why third statement becomes incorrect. Yes, headquarter means secretariat is in Dhaka. Okay, I hope it is clear now. So this question is interesting. UN clause. How many of you have read this news that recently a ship of US Navy entered into India's exclusive economic zone around Lakshadweep Islands? And you might say, so what is the issue here? The issue is Indian Navy, Indian authorities, Indian Coast Guard were not informed about this entry, this activity. When Indian Navy raised apprehension, how can you do this? then US said that it is within our right. And the treaty which US quoted here is UN clause. So US said, we have done this under UN clause. We entered your EEZ, exclusive economic zone, not your territorial area. Okay, we entered your exclusive economic zone. So what they did there, so they showed freedom of navigation operation, FONOP. So that was done around Lakshadweep. So although this issue was not escalated much, the reason was in other areas, India and US relations are going fine. So our authorities and even US authorities did not want it to escalate this issue. Okay. Now, what is important for us from this incident? The importance, it comes with respect to provisions of UN clause. What was US saying? Was US correct or India was correct? Okay. So since US was saying that it was under UN clause, so my first question is, okay, this question is different from what is being asked in this question. Okay. If I make a statement is both India and US have ratified UN clause. What would you say? This statement is correct or incorrect? Repeating again, I'm saying if a statement is made like this, that both India and US have ratified UN clause, United Nations Convention on Law of Sea, the statement is correct or incorrect? Just mention correct, incorrect, or true, false, and I'm assuring you, you are not going to forget this. So as I promised that you are not going to forget this, the reason was this statement is incorrect. This statement is incorrect because India has ratified UN clause, but USA has not ratified UN clause. USA has not ratified UN clause. अब ये तो वही बात हो गई कि US has not ratified UN clause, but US has performed this operation in India's EEZ saying it is within the framework of UN clause. How can you quote framework of UN clause when you have not ratified yourself? Right? So this was the issue. Now coming to the question, first statement, it is the only international convention which stipulates a framework for state jurisdiction in maritime space, providing a different legal status to different maritime zones. Yes, this statement is correct. Second is International Seabed Authority is one of the institutions created by UN clause. Yes, because within UN clause, there are three institutions which were made. Okay, and three institutions were International Seabed Authority, International Tribunal for Law of the Sea, the Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf. These are the three institutions established under UN clause. Okay, so that's why two statements are correct. Okay, now coming to the third statement, according to UN clause, the coastal states have the right to prohibit or limit freedom of navigation or oversight in exclusive economic zone. So the issue which I just shared with you was related to third statement. So in exam, many students might put this, third statement as correct. The reason was they would think, okay, it is if UN clause is saying that 200 nautical miles, till 200 nautical miles, this is India's exclusive economic zone. It means we can prohibit, we can limit the navigation of other states. But the statement is incorrect because UN clause allows other states to enter within your EEZ, navigate and oversight. Okay, although UN clause also mentions that this EEZ, to regulate this EEZ, the respective coastal state can also make their own laws. So India's interpretation is that within India's exclusive economic zone, if any other power, for example, US or any other power, wants to enter, navigate through that. So they will be allowed to navigate, but they have to inform to Indian authorities. That is India's side of the story. That is Indian law is saying. But the statement is what UN clause is saying. Okay, so that is why this statement becomes incorrect, because this is not prohibited. Okay, if you got this question now, just mention confirm in comments. Confirm fastly. Coming to the next statement. Next question. With reference to various agreements regarding European Union, consider the following statements. The first statement is, the Treaty of Lisbon created European citizenship, allowing citizens to reside in and move freely between member states. This statement is incorrect. Actually, this was Maastricht Treaty, which created European citizenship, not Lisbon. Okay, not Treaty of Lisbon. Next, the Maastricht Treaty gave the members the right to leave EU. Actually, that was Treaty of Lisbon. So what you got? Actually, the treaties were swapped within these statements, and that's why these two statements are incorrect. Third statement, Schengen Agreement paved the way for the creation of open borders without passport control between most member states. Yes, this statement is correct. So answer is third only. So whenever you get opportunity in future to study in any institution in Europe, because even after getting into service, UPSC also provide opportunity to civil servants who have got selected, who are serving, to study in topmost universities in Europe and in US. So when you will be going there, for example, for pursuing some 1-year program for masters in public policy, or so at that time, so you will be having facility that if you are studying in UK, so you can move to France or some others, for some other areas of Europe, and freely. And when I say freely, it means your restrictions on you would be much lesser, because you are already allowed to be in that area for a considerable interval of time. But for that, you will be needing a Schengen visa. Okay, so that's a special arrangement. So that special arrangement comes from which agreement? Schengen Agreement. And if someone is a citizen from a European Union, from a nation of European Union, then conditions are much easier for moving, for trading. So that is what Schengen Agreement is all about. That's why third statement becomes correct. Now, consider the following statements about Indian Ocean Rim Association. France is a recent country to join Indian Ocean Rim Association. Yes, it is correct. And why it is correct? You all heard Reunion Island, right? So Reunion Island is an overseas territory of France. And due to this, France has recently joined Indian Ocean Rim Association. Second is, India hosted the first Indian Ocean Dialogue, which flagship in, yes, it was hosted here in Kerala. Third, the Secretariat of Indian Ocean, ye wrong hai, yahan par Mauritius aana hai. So that is why 1 and 2 are correct. With reference to recently signed third Bodo Accord, consider the following statements. You all know that West Bengal region is especially in news. Okay, one is election and another is this Bodo Accord. The agreement promises more autonomy to Bodoland Territorial Council under the 6th schedule. So there's a BTA, Bodoland Territorial Area. I'm talking about Assam. Okay, I just said West Bengal. I'm talking about Assam. So what is the issue? The issue is there's a demand that Bodoland territorial area should be given more autonomous status in terms of making rules, in terms of executing those rules. There was a demand for a separate state within this area. So middle path was this, that we will have a Bodoland territorial area, and within this Bodoland territorial area, we are going to have a Bodoland Territorial Council. Okay, and this spatial arrangement of parts with regard to Bodoland Territorial Council will be made under 6th schedule. Okay, so this agreement was moved ahead with respect to some proactive actions by Ministry of Home Affairs. Now, second statement is the criminal cases registered against the members of NDFB, the faction which fights for more autonomous powers to this area, for heinous crimes shall be withdrawn by Assam government. So actually this statement is incorrect, because as per this third Bodo Accord, the provision is saying that those people who were having cases of non-heinous crimes, they will be withdrawn. But the statement is saying heinous crimes. Okay, so non-heinous crimes will be withdrawn. And third accord also says that if someone is having cases of heinous crime, then this kind of cases will be reviewed by Assam government. So heinous crime cases will be reviewed and non-heinous crime cases will be cancelled or withdrawn by Assam government. So that is why second statement becomes incorrect. Okay, I hope you got the idea, the level of detail in which you should look on these important accords. Bodo language will be notified by Assam government in Devanagari script as the associate official language in the state. Yes, the statement is correct. So that is why answer is 1 and 3. So this is all from my side. Now Tehlil sir will take up science and tech portion.
Thank you so much, Shashank sir, for this insightful discussion. Okay, guys, we'll be starting our science and tech discussion of the science and tech topic. So before we begin, I just want to give you a brief idea about what all we have to study in science and technology before sitting in this year's preliminary. So starting from science and technology, it's a very dynamic subject, almost one of the most dynamic subjects that we have in the entire syllabus. So the first topic that you have to study in the science and technology, and more or less 3 to 4 questions might come from this particular component, is biotechnology. So biotechnology is one of the those subjects that every year some questions might come from biotechnology, because every year there is some research and development happening in this particular field. Second very important topic that you will have to study in science and technology is space technology. And in space technology, you need to have some brief some idea about physics. You should have some idea about physics, because in space technology, the satellites that we are sending up, the telescopes that we are sending up, like the James Webb telescope, the Kepler's telescope, like these important telescopes, they study some very intricate concepts of physics, particularly of astronomy and cosmology. Astronomy and cosmology, these are some very important topics. Likewise, we are also studying some topics from physics, like quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics is again one more important topics, in physics that we have to study. And because we do some, like recently, China had sent a quantum satellite into the space, and it was the first time that we saw quantum key distribution communication being done through a satellite. So that satellite was actually working on the models of quantum mechanics. So that also becomes important for you. More or less 2 to 3 questions are actually coming from the space technology component. Then again, you have one more important concept, important component in science and technology, that is your defense technology. Defense technology, that becomes also very important. What are the various missile systems that we have? what are the various, what is the, the ballistic missile system, what is the cruise missile system, what are the various submarines that we have, what was the integrated guided missile development program, what are the attack submarines, what are the ballistic submarines, what are the nuclear powered submarines, what are the diesel powered submarines, fine. Likewise, we have to study what are the corvettes of India, what are, how many destroyers India has, what's the difference between a corvette and a destroyer. Likewise, we have torpedo vessels, aircraft carriers. So this is all important for, like also unmanned aerial vehicles, drones, वगैरह. आपका the drone regulation 1.0 had already come. And now recently drone regulation 2.0 came in, and we are waiting for drone regulation 3.0, from where we can actually start the e-commerce delivery through the drones. Now, after drone technology, defense technology, the fourth important component is health. Health is very important. Like you'll have to study what are the basics of the blood, what are the, how the blood transfusion happens, what are the transfusion reactions, what is delayed transfusion reaction, then what are the various blood groups, what is ABO compatibility, what is RH compatibility. Then you'll have to also study in health that what are the various types of diseases that you have, like viral diseases, and how do we use our immune system to actually fight against these diseases that we have. Our immunity, we have innate immune system, we have acquired immune system, in which is used in the vaccinology, and in vaccines we have live attenuated vaccines, we have inactivated vaccines. So these are some important topics from health. Again, we'll have to study some important diseases like bacterial diseases. You'll have to study some viral diseases, some protozoa diseases, some parasitic diseases, some fungal diseases. Fine. Now that is very important in health. Then fifth important component in science and technology is information and communication technology, IT and computing. You'll have to study what what are the various technologies that are being developed in this realm. In computing, you'll have to study the quantum computers, the super neuromorphic computers, supercomputer. Like the recently quantum computing mission was launched in last year's budget with the allocation of 8,000 crores. Again, you'll have to study what is 5G, what is Wi-Fi 6, what is Internet of Things, what is augmented reality, virtual reality, big data analytics, fine, blockchain technology used in cryptocurrencies. These are some very important topics, very sensitive topics in computing. And then you'll have to study robotics. Robotics is again a very important topic. It's the future of technology. Robotics are applications of robotics in various fields. Then again, there is one more important topic. Last year, the question came from here, that is nanotechnology. In nanotechnology, you'll have to study what are the various nanomaterials, nanomissiles, what are the carbon nanotubes, what are quantum dots, carbon quantum dots that recently we saw in the development. Assam has recently developed the quantum dots from cheap coal. So that was again in news. Quantum technology is again a very important topic in science and technology. So this is all about your basics about what are the various major components that you will have to cover. So today, now we are going to discuss about some questions that were asked in your top gear examination. So let me share the screen. Okay. Okay. So the first question that we'll study in here is your the question number 9. Question number 9 was asked regarding cut, copy, paste mechanism. Sometimes seen in news is related to which of the following. Now this cut, copy, paste mechanism, if you have been following the news, cut, copy, paste mechanism is directly linked to gene editing technology. Gene editing technology, wherein you cut a portion of a gene, you copy it, and you paste it into some other, forming the recombinant DNA. Fine, recombinant DNA. Now, recombinant DNA technology was actually, it was developed in 1973 by Cohen and Boyer, And this recombinant DNA technology has revolutionized the entire domain of biotechnology. And in fact, it is the actual technology that is being continuously used, and it is the technology that has united the field of biotechnology with genetic engineering. Now, cut copy paste mechanism is it is a gene editing technique. It has nothing to do with patents. It has nothing to do with skin grafting. It has nothing to do with AI, artificial intelligence. It is a simple gene editing technology. Fine. Now, this is not the only gene editing technology that we have. If you see, this is CRISPR-Cas9, and CRISPR is actually, the full form of it is clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats. Now, we have developed this technology by imitating the natural immune processes of bacteria. We have learned this technology from bacteria, and this CRISPR, this Cas9 CRISPR is actually an enzyme that is, used to actually cut the target DNA. Now, this CRISPR-Cas9 technology is not the only gene editing technology. We have zinc finger nucleases, ZFN. ZFN is another editing technology. We have TALEN's gene editing. This is another gene editing technology. But CRISPR-Cas9 is more sort of a, we can actually afford it. ZFN and TALEN's are quite expensive than CRISPR-Cas9. Therefore, CRISPR-Cas9, and also CRISPR-Cas9 is very important in the sense that it actually precisely cuts the DNA where we want it to find. So this is also known as find and replace mechanism. It is not only known as cut, copy, paste mechanism. It is also known as find and replace. That you find a particular gene that you want to cut and you replace it, and you directly replace it. So therefore, suppose this is a DNA molecule in here, and we have actually found this particular gene in this DNA that we want to replace. Fine. So you actually have to get CRISPR-Cas9. It will cut the DNA at this particular point with this molecular scissors, restriction enzymes. It will cut the DNA here and replace it with some other base sequence. Fine. So that was a very easy question that was asked. So it is actually linked to gene editing technology. Next question that we'll discuss here is regarding the trans fat. Very important concept. So trans fat has been in news. It was in news previous year also. It is in news right now also, and it will be in news because we are continuously actually lagging behind of our targets of trans fat, by bringing down the trans fat in our food and fats and oils. So suppose FSSAI has actually set a limit of 3% of trans fat in fats and oils. Fine. So we would want our this food to actually have a less concentration of trans fat because it's not good for the health. Why it is not good for the health, we'll just understand in a minute now. Now see guys, what is a fat molecule? If you study about a fat molecule is simply, it has glycerol and it has 3 fatty acids. So this particular here molecule is known as glycerol, and these are the 3 fatty acids. 3 fatty acids. Okay. Now these 3 fatty acids are actually long hydrocarbon chains. They are actually made up of 12 to 18 carbon atoms. 12 to 18 carbon atoms. Okay. Now these fatty acids, these long fatty acids, they can be straight and they can be bent also. Fine. For example, let me clear this slide. Just give me a second. Okay. Say for example, this is a fatty acid, and this is a fatty acid in here. Let me have a red pen. Okay. This is a fatty acid in here, and this is a glycerol, and then there is a hydrocarbon chain. It is generally 12 to 18 atoms long, and you're seeing that it is a straight chain, right? It's a straight chain. Why is it a straight chain? Because none of the carbon atoms has a double bond between them. Now you're seeing there is a single carbon bond between these carbon atoms. Therefore, it gives it a stable and a straight configuration. Such kind of fats are actually stable. These are stable and these are solid at room temperature. Fine, they are compact. They are very compact. But whenever such kind of fats which are straight and they have single bonds between their carbon atoms, these are known as saturated fats. Fine. Then we have unsaturated fats. What are these unsaturated fats? These have at some places they have a double bond. That's why they actually are known as unsaturated fatty acids. And these unsaturated fatty acids, whenever there comes a double bond between them, it actually gets bent at the point where the double bond is. So it is actually bent at this particular point. This bending, develops gaps between the molecules, and it actually, becomes liquid at the room temperature because there is, intermolecular gaps between these fatty acids. Now, because of these gaps and bend, it becomes an unsaturated fatty acid because of the double bond between the carbon atoms. Now, important concept in here is it can be of two types. One is known as monounsaturated fatty acid, and second is known as PUFA, that is polyunsaturated fatty acids. What is MUFA? MUFA is a type of unsaturated fatty acid in which there is only one carbon-carbon double bond. In which there is only one carbon-carbon double bond. That is why the word mono is being used. So mono ka matlab hai the carbon chain has only one double bond. What is polyunsaturated fatty acid? That it has multiple double bonds. Fine. Again, in this unsaturated fatty acids, where the double bond is, now you can see the place where the double bond is, the hydrogen, in that carbon atom, in that configuration, it can have two configurations. Either it can be on the same side or it can be on the opposite sides. Fine. If the hydrogen atoms at the point of the double bond is on the same side, this is known as cis fatty acid. This is known as cis fat. We call it as cis fat. What is a cis fat? It is an unsaturated fatty acid, and it is that kind of an unsaturated fatty acid in which the hydrogen have a cis configuration. Cis configuration means it is on the same side. Now, you are seeing here in here that the point at which the double bond is, the hydrogen and hydrogen are on the opposite sides, and this gives it a trans configuration. Therefore, we call it a trans fat. Fine. So, what is the problem with the trans fat? The problem with the trans fat is, and other fats are, now say for example, you have an unsaturated fatty acid, then you have a saturated fatty acid, and then you have a trans fat. Fine. This unsaturated fatty acid, it increases your good cholesterol that we call HDL, and it also increases, it decreases your bad cholesterol, that is LDL. So you would want to consume a lot of unsaturated fatty acids. Why? Because it increases the good cholesterol and it decreases the bad cholesterol. HDL we call, this is the good cholesterol. Fine. Then we have LDL. This is high density lipoprotein and this is low density lipoprotein. This is a good cholesterol and this is a bad cholesterol. So unsaturated fatty acid is good for the health. Then you have saturated fatty acids. Saturated fatty acids actually increase the good cholesterol, but they also increase the bad cholesterol. Now, this is the way the problem comes in the saturated fats, that it increases the good cholesterol, but the problem is it also increases the bad cholesterol. And the worst kind of a fat is a trans fat, and trans fat actually decreases the good cholesterol, that is HDL, and it increases the bad cholesterol, that is LDL. Now, that is the worst kind of a configuration that we would want in our food. So therefore, we actually have a lot of guidelines in place in which we want to actually decrease the level of trans fat in our food consumption. Now, this was what was asked in your question. So first of all, we would also want to know that this trans fat in our food was actually, according to FSSAI guidelines, it was actually targeted to be 3% by 2021. So we wanted to have a reduction in the trans fat in our food to 3% by 2021, that is this year, and we wanted to decrease it to 2% by 2022. So it will be 2% by 2022 and 3% by 2021. That is the guideline of FSSAI. We have earlier, the guidelines were in 2011. We had a guideline of bringing it down to 10%. And we got it down to 10%. Then we wanted to bring it down by 5%, bring it down to 5% in 2015. So we got it down by to 5%, and now we want to decrease it to 3% and then to 2%. But the WHO recommends that trans fat intake has to be limited to less than 1%. So we are way ahead, behind. We want to decrease the trans fat in our food to less than 5%. Fine. Now, how the trans fat is made? Trans fat is generally made. Now, see, this is an unsaturated fatty acid, and this is a saturated fatty acid. The unsaturated fatty acid that has carbon-carbon double bond, and saturated fatty acid that has carbon-carbon single bond. Now, from this unsaturated to saturated, there is a process known as hydrogenation. And by this hydrogenation process, we add hydrogen to the unsaturated fat, and it breaks the carbon-carbon double bond and gives hydrogen configuration to this saturated acid. Now, it makes the unsaturated fatty acid and changes it to saturated fatty acid through the process of hydrogenation. But sometimes what we do is we take this unsaturated fatty acid and we do the partial hydrogenation. Partial hydrogenation will actually lead to the trans configuration, which will have hydrogen at one side and the other hydrogen on another side. Now, this trans configuration will give us trans fat. So trans fat are made by partial hydrogenation of unsaturated fatty acids. Okay. Now, let's look at the question. consider the following statements regarding trans fat. So trans fat, they are saturated fatty acids? No, they are unsaturated fatty acids. Yahin pe aapka point galat ho gaya. Now this particular statement is wrong. Why? Because trans fats are not saturated, they are unsaturated fatty acids. Okay. Second statement is they increase HDL, they increase the good cholesterol in body. No, they decrease the good cholesterol in the body. They decrease the good cholesterol and they increase the bad cholesterol, that is LDL. So they actually increase the LDL, not HDL. So this is also wrong. Then you have in India, FSSAI has set the limit for trans fats presently at 3%. That is absolutely correct. And the answer will be option 4, that is 3 only. Next question that we'll have to study is the clean meat. Now, it was recently in news, clean meat. Clean meat is a artificially produced meat because according to WHO, human population is going to be 10 billion, almost 10 billion in 2050. So we have to feed this 10 billion population, human population, and they are actually recommending, and they are actually predicting that the consumption of meat-related articles will increase by 88% by 2050. That is 88% hike will be there in the demand of meat products. Fine. So if there is an 88% hike, we would want to actually have we would want to increase the domestication of animals, which will actually have an impact on the on the land, because we want them to actually graze on land. But we already have 27% of the world's land under livestock farming, but you'll have to increase it again because there is a huge demand of these meat products. Now this is not possible because you are actually shifting your land to the industrial and service sector, and now the livestock farming or the land under cultivation or land under agriculture or land under livestock is continuously coming down. Now in such a scenario, you would want to actually have artificial meat. Now we have started only artificial meat in 2013, in which we actually do the cell culture of this artificial meat. This artificial meat is known as clean meat. It is made in laboratory. You just take it. For example, you want to have some meat of say, for example, sheep. What you have to do is you have to take the cells of the sheep and you have to culture it in the laboratory. The cells will start growing, and while they are growing, the meat formation happens. But the problem with this artificial meat or clean meat is it is devoid of fats. Fine. And fats give the taste to the meat. If you actually, the people that enjoy the non-vegetarian food, they know that the meat actually, the taste, the flavors in the meat is actually because of its fat. Fine. And other related items also. Then the problem with this clean meat is its flavor. The flavor is not that good as compared to the original meat. Now, this is your artificial meat. Like here, this is made in the laboratory by doing the cell culture of the cells of the organism that you want to consume. Now, what is clean meat? Meat produced using cell culture? Absolutely right. Is it a meat produced using 3D printing? No, it's nothing to do with 3D printing. Is it a vegetarian meat? No. Is it a meat produced without using artificial growth promoters? The simple answer is it is a meat produced using cell culture. That is option 1. Then the next topic we'll have to study is the fundamental forces of nature. For this, you'll have to make a particular graph. I want you to actually take this to a level that you can actually solve a lot of questions from that. So we'll have to cover it from here. Okay, guys, let's start. If you want to understand this fundamental forces of nature, what are the different particles? The model that you should study is the standard model of particle physics. It will actually have, it will solve a lot of confusions that people have. Now, in the standard model of particle physics, what we have, standard model of particle physics, like initially when the Dalton came up with this idea that the atom is the last unit, atom is the undivisible part of the matter, it will not be divided any further. But later on, Rutherford came in and Bohr's model came in, and we actually realized that in the atom there are fundamental particles. Now from then we are actually taking these atoms and we are colliding them with each other. This gives us a lot of different scattered particles that we have in nature. Now there are so much of these particles that we felt the need to classify them in different categories. Okay. Now, in the standard model of particle physics, they actually have classified it on the basis of matter and energy. Now, standard model the first thing, the first classification is done on the basis of that. If you look at the nature, if you look at the universe, you'll find two kinds of things. One is the matter, and the other is the energy. Fine, the matter and the forces. These are the two things in the universe. Either something is made up of matter, or there is a force, there is a nature, there is an energy. Now, standard model of particle physics says the particle that actually make up matter, for example, the Earth, the Sun, the planets, the stars, fine, the galaxies, every damn thing that is made of matter, it is actually made up of fermions. So fermions are those particles that actually make up matter. Now, these fermions are of two types. Fermions are divided into two types. Fermions can be of two types. It actually is based on the fact that if the fermion is made up of quarks, then we'll say that it is a hadron. If the fermion is not made up of quarks, then we say it's a lepton. So what is a lepton? Lepton is actually a fermion which is not made of quarks. What is a hadron? Hadron is a fermion which is made up of quarks. For example, if you have a hadron in here, you'll find quarks in it. If you have a lepton, there is nothing inside. There is no quark inside a lepton. Okay. Now the quarks are of 6 types. As of now, the quarks are of 6 types. We have 6 types of quarks. For example, there is bottom quark, there is top quark, there is up quark, there is down quark, there is charm quark, and there is strange quark. These are 6 types of quarks that we have inside hadrons. Fine. So hadrons have 6 different kinds of quarks, and these quarks actually actually practice confinement. We call it in quantum physics, they practice confinement. What is confinement? That you would never find a quark in isolation. You always find the quarks in some combination with other quarks. Fine. Suppose the 2 quarks, there are 3 quark combinations, there are 2 quark combinations. Fine. These different quark combinations, they are actually practicing confinement. That is, you will never find a quark which is in isolation. Therefore, it becomes very difficult for us to understand the properties of quarks, individual quarks. Why? Because you never find individual quarks inside hadrons. Okay. Now, if in a hadron there are 3 quarks, if a hadron is made up of 3 quarks, then that hadron will be known as baryon. That hadron is known as a baryon. If a hadron is made up of 2 quarks, then that particular hadron is known as a meson. Generally, we have a one quark, normal quark, and a one anti-quark in this quark and an anti-quark that actually make up the meson. Okay. Now hadrons are divided into 2 types. If a hadron is made up of 3 quarks, that is a baryon. If the hadron is made up of 2 quarks, that is a meson. In the baryon, say for example, what is the example of a baryon? For example, proton. Proton is a baryon. That means the proton that you have inside an atom is actually made up of 3 different quarks. Which are generally 2 up quarks and 1 down quark. Now these 3 quarks in combination make up the proton. So proton is actually a baryon. Fine. Likewise, we have neutron. Neutron is again a baryon which is made up of 3 quarks. So neutron will be made up of 2 down quarks and 1 up quark. Fine. So this is a different combination of quarks that come up with a different particle, that is neutron. But neutron and protons are actually baryons. Now on the other side, you have mesons, and mesons are made up of 2 quarks. Some examples of mesons are, say for example, there is pions, there are kaons. These are some particles in meson category that are actually made up of 2 quarks. Then this is the classification on the basis of quarks, those particles that have actually quarks in them. Then the other particles are leptons that are not made up of quarks. There is nothing inside them as of now, but the string theory actually predicts that there is some filament of energy inside these leptons as well as inside these quarks. But as of now, we can't actually detect it. So in leptons are actually those particles, those fermions which are not made up of quarks. For example, electron. So electron is not made up of quark. Electron is a lepton. Fine. Likewise, we have muons. Muons are some different configuration of leptons. Then you have neutrinos. Neutrinos are also not made up of quarks. Fine. They are leptons, neutrinos, and neutrinos are the second most abundant particle in the universe. It is the second most abundant particle. Which is the first? We'll come to that. So neutrino is the second most abundant particle in the universe. In this neutrino, you have tau neutrino, you have electron neutrino, you have muon neutrino, you have different kinds of neutrinos. Okay, and India has an Indian Neutrino Observatory to actually detect these different kinds of neutrinos. This is the second most abundant particle in the universe. Again, neutrinos are nearly massless. They are nearly massless. They don't have mass. Again, the neutrinos do not have any charge. They are chargeless. Fine. They are massless particles. They are chargeless particles. Because of that only, if you do not have mass, if you do not have charge, you actually do not interact with the normal matter. Fine. So the normal matter is actually a baryonic matter, which is made up of protons and neutrons, that is made up of quarks inside them. But neutrinos, which is not made up of any quark, which has no mass, which has no charge, it is actually very difficult to detect these neutrinos. Therefore, they have weak interaction. They have absolutely almost no interaction with the normal matter. So you would actually be, very shocked to know this, that every second through our body, billions of neutrinos pass through our body without interacting with our normal matter. They actually come from the sun, and billions of neutrinos pass through our body every second in a day. Now neutrinos are massless, chargeless, and they are second most abundant particles. These are the particles that form up the matter in the universe. Now the other form, other kind of particle that the standard model classifies is those particles that come up with the forces. Fine, that come up with the forces. Now, if you talk about, there's a gravitational force between the bodies of mass. This gravitational force that is between the body of mass, this gravitational force is actually, we are predicting that it must be carried with a particle. So for example, there is an electromagnetic force. There is a nuclear force. Fine. So these electromagnetic force, for example, the force between charged particles, that is an electromagnetic force. The force between magnets, fine. So that force that is between these charged particles, this force between the charged particles is actually carried by a particle. It's carried by a particle, and these carriers are known as force carriers. So whenever you have a force, the force must have a force carrier, fine. It must have a force carrier. So there are 4 forces as of now. The fifth is, we are actually researching for that. So the first force is electromagnetic force. The second force is weak nuclear force. The third force is strong nuclear force, and the fifth force is gravitational force. Gravitational force. So the electromagnetic force is carried by photons. So photon becomes the force carrier of electromagnetic force. This photon is actually a carrier of electromagnetic force, and it is the most abundant particle in the universe. So photon is the most abundant particle. Then you have weak nuclear force. It is carried by WZ bosons. And strong nuclear force is carried by gluons. And as of yet, we have not found a force carrier of gravitational force. So as of now, we are continuously, in the process of finding a force carrier of gravitational force. But whenever we get it, it will be named as graviton. But as of now, we have not found a force carrier of gravitational force. All of these particles that are the force carriers are known as bosons. So this is the division between the particles. Now, we'll come to your question, what was asked in the question. Now, again, one thing that I have cleared in here is which of these forces is the weakest force. So gravitational force is considered the weakest of all. It is the weakest of all. It is so much weak that we have not yet found gravitational force at the quantum level. Fine. The second, more stronger than that, is the electromagnetic force at the third level. This is at the fourth level. Then more stronger than electromagnetic force is the weak nuclear force, and at the first level is the strong nuclear force. That is at number 1, is the most strongest force of the universe. Now, let's come to the question. This is the question that was asked. It was a very easy question. Now, weak nuclear force is much stronger than electromagnetic force. I already told you, weak nuclear force is stronger than electromagnetic force, which is stronger than gravitational force, and strong nuclear force is stronger than weak nuclear force. So the first statement is absolutely correct. Second is, out of 4 fundamental forces, only electromagnetic force can be repulsive force. Absolutely right. Because electromagnetic force is between charged particles. If you have like charged particles, there will be a repulsion between them. If you have unlike charged particles, there will be attraction between them. So electromagnetic force is the only force that can be a repulsive force. So the answer is both 1 and 2. Okay. Then you have one more very important concept, that is CMBR, that is cosmic microwave background radiation. It is the radiation, we call it a relic radiation. What is a relic radiation? It is the radiation that is actually a signature of the Big Bang theory. Now, Big Bang theory, stipulates that in the beginning of the universe, 13.8 billion years ago, from a singularity, there was a huge explosion. There was a Big Bang supernova explosion. From that, actually the universe started expanding. So in the first second or first first few seconds, almost 1 to 3 seconds, there was an accelerated expansion of the universe. We call it the inflationary theory. And then there was a formation of the particles. And initially, the particles were were actually shortwave photons. Were shortwave photons, and these waves were actually gamma rays. Initially, when the particles started, when the photon or the formation of photons started, so gamma rays or X-rays were actually emitted in a huge amount in the initial phase in the primordial universe, when the formation of the atoms started, and then the first element, that is the hydrogen and helium, started forming. These are known as the primordial elements. From this, when the reaction happened between the nucleus of a hydrogen atom to form the helium, that actually emitted a lot of gamma radiation, a lot of X-ray, and that is known as shortwave photons. But when the expansion of the universe happened, these actually shortwaves, due to the redshift of the universe, these shortwaves actually shifted to long wave radiations. These actually shifted to long wave radiations, becoming the microwave radiations. So if you have to detect that the Big Bang really happened, you'll have to look at these microwave radiations that are all around the universe. We have recently detected these microwave radiations, and they are known as cosmic microwave background radiations. Let me show you. This is a cosmic microwave background radiation, and this is a relic radiation of the Big Bang that happened 13.8 billion years ago. This is the proof that the Big Bang happened. This is the proof that the universe had a beginning. Fine. So universe is not infinite. Universe is not eternal. It was not always there. It had a beginning at a particular point of time. Now that beginning, when it exploded, it emitted a lot of radiation, and that radiation was initially in the gamma radiation or the X-ray radiation, and due to the redshift of the universe, the redshift actually led to the formation of microwave radiations, and this is the cosmic microwave background radiation. Fine. What is the question regarding the cosmic microwave background radiation? Is it also known as a relic radiation? Exactly, it is a relic radiation. It is not associated with any star, galaxy, and other objects. Absolutely right. It has no linkage with any star or galaxy or other objects. It is actually a relic radiation of the Big Bang that happened 13.8 billion years ago. It serves as an evidence for the expansion of the universe. I already told you, when the expansion happened, when the inflation happened of the universe, that expansion led to the shifting of short wave photons to actually long wave photons into the microwave radiation. That is actually, all of these statements are absolutely correct. So option 4 is the answer. Then you have question number 19. With regard to GM crops, consider the following statements. GM crops are genetically modified crops. We have not only formed the genetically modified crops, but we have also formed the genetically modified organisms, in which we have come up with transgenic animals. We have made a transgenic cow. We have made a transgenic fish. We have made a transgenic goats, transgenic sheep. Fine. All these sheep have been developed by this modern biotechnology. Now, the genetically modified crops are of various types. There are various types in which you genetically modify a crop to have a certain feature, to have a certain characteristic. Now, these genetically modified crops can be BT crops, they can be some other crops. Say, for example, there is a super rice. That is a genetically modified crop. There is a golden rice. Again. There is again a black rice. There is a black rice. This is also a genetically modified crop. Then you have sweet corn. Again. These are some. Or you have the dhara mustard. Okay. This is also known as genetically modified mustard. It is not a BT crop. But it is a genetically modified mustard. We call it dhara mustard hybrid. Okay. DMH11. Now these are some of the genetically modified crops. Now under this, the BT crop is the most famous. BT crop is actually formed from a bacteria known as Bacillus thuringiensis, which is a soil bacterium. It is a soil bacterium and it has a property of creating a toxin known as BT toxin, which is very toxic to pests. It is also known as crytoxin. It is also known as crytoxin. So these Bt crops are actually made from this gene, that is the Bt gene that we find in Bacillus thuringiensis, which is a soil bacterium. Because of that gene, this bacteria actually has the capacity to produce Bt toxin or crytoxin. We actually took this gene from that bacteria and we shifted it and we pasted this gene into the Bt crop, the seed of the crops. Now these crops with this Bt gene, when they started producing, when the production of the plant happened, that plant in its growth actually started producing Bt toxin. So that plant actually became toxic to pests. Fine. So these Bt crops are pest resistant crops. These are pest resistant crops. If you have a Bt crop, you would not want any pesticide to actually sprinkle on your crop. Why? Because the pesticide is already made by the Bt crop itself by the production of crytoxin. Fine. Again, you have GM mustard. It is a genetically modified mustard. It is actually a herbicide resistant crop. It is a herbicide resistant crop. Fine. Now, among these Bt crops, you have various Bt crops. You have Bt brinjal, you have Bt cotton. Fine. You have various Bt rice as well. All of these Bt crops are actually have the same technology. They have the Bt gene and they produce the Bt toxin. Now they are toxic to pests. Now all of these Bt crops, only those all of those crops, Bt crops that are food related crops that actually are involved in human consumption, we are not using them. We are not producing them in India. Fine, all of these Bt crops that people eat, we are not produced in India. The only Bt crop that is in cultivation in India is Bt cotton. Why? Cotton is not generally produced, consumed by humans. So therefore, we actually have Bt cotton is the only crop that is being produced, that is being cultivated commercially in India. Research is happening on various other crops as well, but it is the only crop that is being cultivated in India. Likewise, we have GM mustard. It was originally approved by GIAC, which is the Genetically Engineering Appraisal Committee. GIAC actually approved, Dhara mustard hybrid, that is GM mustard, in 2016. But later on, the Supreme Court came in and it stayed the order. And again in 2018, the GIAC Genetically Engineering Appraisal Committee backtracked in its initial order and said that we need some more data before launching its release for the human consumption. So GM mustard is still waiting for commercial release. It has not been released yet. It was released earlier in 2016, but Supreme Court stayed it later. Now GM mustard is not developed by ICAR. It is developed by University of Delhi. Delhi University has developed GM mustard. Okay. Now, which is the statement above that is correct? First statement is correct. Second statement is wrong. So the only statement that is correct is one only. Okay, one only. Then you have quantum cryptography. Consider the following statements about quantum cryptography. Quantum cryptography actually uses the concepts of quantum mechanics. The concept of quantum mechanics. Now, in this quantum mechanics, what is actually the various concepts that we use in this quantum mechanics is the concept of superposition. Superposition is being used, in which we see that the particles, that the subatomic particles, that is quantum particles, are actually in a superposition. They are, whenever you're not observing them, they are actually in a superposition. They are in multiple states. Then you have entanglement. Entanglement was the concept which was actually in linkage with Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, in which he told us that we cannot actually exactly measure the position and the velocity of the particle at the same time. So Heisenberg's uncertainty principle was actually, Einstein tried to disprove this principle by coming up with this idea. But later on, we actually realized that Heisenberg's uncertainty principle is actually quite strong, and we are not able to falsify it. Therefore, entanglement and superposition are the concepts that are used in quantum cryptography, quantum technology, to create quantum computers, to create quantum key distribution. That is the communication that we are doing with these quantum particles now. So they are actually, the particles are in superposition. They are in various quantum states, and these quantum states can be changed by a person that is observing these quantum particles. Whenever you observe these quantum particles, you actually change their state, and that is known as an observer effect. That is known as an observer effect. So what is an observer effect? It is just an effect in which the observer of these quantum particles actually changes the state of these particles by the mere observation of these particles. Now, with reference to quantum cryptography, consider the following statements. When the quantum data is copied, the quantum states always changes. Yes, I told you, if you do any sort of thing with these quantum particles, you actually change them. That is known as an observer effect. We have already done that. Second, It functions due to quantum entanglement phenomena. It functions due to quantum entanglement phenomena and Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. It is absolutely right. It is linked with both of these phenomena, and the option correct is option 3. That is both 1 and 2. Okay. Then you have, with reference to vaccine, consider the following statements. Vaccines can be made for both viral as well as bacterial diseases. mRNA vaccines, no pathogen are introduced into the body. Now, see, guys, whenever you talk about the vaccine, vaccines are of two types. One is a live attenuated vaccine, and the other is a killed vaccine. A killed, or we call it an inactivated vaccine. These are two kinds of vaccine. If you talk about a vaccine, say for example, polio vaccines are of two types. One is OPV, oral polio vaccine, and the other is IPV, inactivated polio vaccine. Now, these are two kinds of vaccines used in polio. And likewise, we have corona vaccines. The corona vaccines are of two kinds again, in which we have used some killed vaccines. For example, if you talk about Covishield, that is being used in India, Covishield is actually a killed or inactivated vaccine. Or you call about Covaxin. Covaxin is again a killed or inactivated vaccine. What is the difference between two? The difference is, in live attenuated vaccine, you actually use the virus and weaken it to a level that it is actually not able to multiply to that, it is not able to multiply by a huge amount. Now, the virus is actually weakened a lot. And in this live attenuated vaccine, we use a weakened pathogen. And this pathogen is not able to multiply in large amounts. So multiplication happens, but not to that level. Multiplication, but does happen. In killed vaccine, we actually use an inactivated vaccine. We use an inactivated virus or bacteria, for that matter. It's not important that only viruses have to be used. We have, suppose, tetanus. We already know we do tetanus. If you have some injury, you go and do tetanus. Tetanus is a bacterial vaccine. You have actually made it from a bacteria. That is a bacterial vaccine. Likewise, whooping cough जो हमें होती है, that is also जो उसके लिए हम vaccine इस्तेमाल करते हैं, that is also a bacterial vaccine. So vaccines need not be only viral; they can also be bacterial. And these vaccines, if the virus or pathogen is inactivated, then there is no chances of multiplication. There happens no multiplication. So live attenuated vaccines are less safe. Why? Because they actually the multiplication of the virus happens in the live attenuated, but killed or inactivated vaccines are they have high safety. Why? Because there is no multiplication of the pathogen. Okay. Now, this was the initial idea of making these vaccines, taking the pathogen and you take the pathogen, weaken it, then it will be a live attenuated vaccine and translocate it into the body, and the body's immune response will generate. Fine. To activate the body's acquired immune system or the adaptive immune system, we used these live attenuated or killed vaccines. Now the technology has come in wherein we are using mRNA vaccines, wherein we are now using mRNA vaccines. One second. Okay, so now we are using mRNA vaccines. What is an mRNA vaccine? Say, for example, this is a cell of the body. This is your cell, and this is a virus. What is a virus? It has a genetic material. Virus has a simple genetic material, and this genetic material, the virus injects into our cell, into our DNA, and it actually starts the production of viral proteins. And these viral proteins are then actually detected by our immune system, and immune system launches an attack onto this virus. And that attack can have two kinds. It can be of T cells by the production of cytotoxic T cells, that is killer T cells, and B cells by the production of antibodies in the case of bacteria. Now, what does the virus do? Virus actually injects this material into the DNA and starts the production of viral proteins. Fine. These viral proteins actually combine to form the virus. Okay, or the bacteria for that matter. Now, what have we learned is we have actually taken instead of taking this one second. Instead of taking this virus and injecting it into our body, there was a problem that the proteins might get combined, and they might form the virus or bacteria, and they may actually be a cause of vaccine-derived infections that we also known as clinical disorders. Now, instead of taking the virus and bringing it into the body, what have we done is we have made an mRNA. We have made a messenger RNA, and we have actually copied the viral sequence into this mRNA. mRNA is only a single stranded. So we have copied this mRNA vaccine, and we have actually translocated it into our cell. Now, this mRNA vaccine actually leads to the formation of viral proteins, but these viral proteins are isolated. These are isolated. That means they are not able to combine to form the virus. They are not able to combine to form the actual virus that might be a cause of clinical infection. Now, therefore, these are isolated, and viral proteins are made to activate our immune system, and immune system comes in, it studies the viral protein and generates the immune response. Fine. Now, this is the technology behind mRNA vaccines. mRNA vaccines के अंदर किसी भी pathogen का इस्तेमाल नहीं होता है. No pathogen is used in mRNA vaccine. Just a sequence of the pathogen is used. Fine. Sequence of its genetic material. So vaccines can be made both for viral as well as bacterial diseases. Absolutely right. Viral diseases like polio virus, HIV virus, you have influenza virus, you have corona vaccine. Bacterial diseases are like tetanus we do, like we have the whooping cough. All these are bacterial vaccines. Now, in mRNA vaccines, no pathogen are either dead or attenuated are actually introduced into the body. Absolutely right. The option both 1 and 2 is right. Okay. Now, this is it. What I was talking about. Now, India's space program. Consider the following statements. India has its own space-based telescope. Very easy. India has already has launched its own space-based telescope. This is India's space-based telescope, and it is known as AstroSat. It is known as AstroSat. It has the capacity to actually look through 5 different telescopes into the universe, and it can look in the visible light, in the UV light, in the X-ray. Fine. Visible may it can look from the near UV or the far UV. In the X-ray, it can look with the wavelengths of soft X-ray and hard X-ray. All of these wavelengths are being used by AstroSat to actually look into the universe, observe the universe. Now, this was the first point. Second point is Aryabhat was the first satellite to be launched from Indian soil. No, Aryabhat is the first satellite of India, but it was not launched from Indian soil. It was launched from Russia using Russia's Intercosmos rocket. So Russia's Intercosmos was used for the launch of Aryabhat. The first satellite that was launched from Indian soil, that was Rohini satellite. Rohini satellite was launched from Rohini rocket family. Rohini rocket का इस्तेमाल हुआ था Rohini satellite को भेजने के लिए. Okay. This was the first satellite of India that was launched from Indian soil. So which of the following is correct? First statement is correct, second is wrong. So option one only is correct. Okay. Then you have consider the following statements regarding Internet of Things. What is an Internet of Things? Simple question tha. Internet of Things is, now there is a technology in which every device that you are using is actually connected. It is actually a smart device. Fine. It has a network to it, and it can actually, it can actually be able to connect to the other devices. Okay. So these are all these devices, whether it be a bus, whether it be a calendar, whether it be a clock, whether it be your phone, whether it be your calendar, whether it be your stethoscope, or any damn thing that we are actually now buying in this electronics industry is actually a smart device now. There might be a time when the 5G comes in and the Wi-Fi 6 comes in. What happens is each of these devices will be connected with each other with a high-speed transmission. Right, and they will actually transmit data from one to another. You'll wake up in the morning, the alarm will actually know that the guy has waken up, and it will actually send the signal to the geyser, and geyser will be on. And in 10 to 15 minutes, you will have hot water. And when you'll be fine, when you'll be actually done with your bathing, geyser will send a signal to the coffee maker. The coffee maker will actually come out with his coffee. And while you are having the coffee maker will send a signal to the car. And कार में जो आपका AC है वो ऑन हो जाएगा, तो आप निकलेंगे अपने कार में, आप कार में बैठेंगे, AC ऑलरेडी वहां पर होगा, गरम गाड़ी होगी. This is all what is actually done by the Internet of Things. And Internet of Things के लिए these smart devices need not be connected by the internet only. इंटरनेट का जरूरी नहीं है कि इसमें इंटरनेट की जरूरत है हमें. They can actually be converted, they can actually be connected with some different network also. We call it a network of things. They have a network of their own. It need not be an internet connection, but there can be a local network also of all these smart devices. Okay. Now let's come to the question. It necessarily needs to be connected to internet. This is wrong. It does not need to be connected to the internet. It can have a local network also. This is a wrong statement. Then you have, it can be used to track persons, animals, and objects. Absolutely right. Why? Because you can have a smart device on a person or an animal or an object, and you can easily track it. Only 2 is correct. That is option 2 only. Then you have another important concept, that is of virtual reality and augmented reality. It was a very easy question. Virtual reality is a technology that superimposes digital content over real life environment. It is a wrong statement. Why? Virtual reality का नाम ही बोलता है, it is virtual. That means it is a computer simulated environment. It is a computer simulated reality. Okay, it is not the actual reality. It is not what you see in real life. It is a computer simulated world. That is known as virtual reality. Okay. Now in augmented reality, this is just to augment your actual reality. Suppose you are looking at me right now. So while you are looking at me, अचानक से यहाँ से मेरा बायोडेटा उठ के आएगा. यहाँ पे मेरे फोटोज आएंगे, फेसबुक के फोटोज, उसमें मेरा बायोडेटा होगा, मैंने कहाँ पढ़ा है वगैरह. ये सब चीजें ऑगमेंटेड रियलिटी का हिस्सा है, इन विच वी ऑगमेंट द रियल रियलिटी. आपने पोकेमॉन गो का नाम सुना होगा. पोकेमॉन गो में it actually augmented the reality. There is a app known as Sakar. It was made by ISRO. Yes, Sakar app क्या है? It is just an augmented reality app. You just take the app and you can actually augment certain simulations on the real world. Fine. So virtual reality is completely virtual. It is completely computer simulated. It is a virtual world. It is not real at all. Augmented reality actually augments your actual reality. It superimposes some digital content into your actual reality. That is your augmented reality. So these are actually, you have to interchange the two. And the which of the following is correct? Neither of them is correct, because they have actually virtual reality की definition ये है और augmented reality की definition ये है. So neither of the two is correct. Option 4. Then you have one more question. There is one more question that is regarding induced pluripotent stem cells. For that, you must have some basic understanding regarding stem cells. Stem cells are those cells in our body that are undifferentiated, unspecialized cells that can actually differentiate into the formation of some specialized cell. If you talk about the cell of a kidney, that is a specialized cell. If you talk about the cell of the skin, cell of a brain, cell of a heart, a cell of the lungs, all these cells are specialized cells. But in our body, there are some unspecialized cells that are not actually not actually a particular cell type of a particular organ, but no, they are unspecialized. They can differentiate to form the specialized cell. So stem cells are actually undifferentiated cells. They are unspecialized cells, and they actually do the differentiation, do the specialization, do the multiplication. They do the multiplication to form the specialized cell. And this multiplication can be done by 2 ways. There can be an obligate asymmetrical replication. Or there can be a stochastic differentiation. We'll not get into it. What is the difference between the two? But you'll just have to understand that the stem cells are undifferentiated, unspecialized cell. They can multiply, they can differentiate into becoming a specialized cell, and the differentiation is done through obligate asymmetrical replication or stochastic differentiation. Now, these stem cells are of various types. There are various types in our body. Say, for example, we have divided these stem cells into 2 major groups. One is your embryonic stem cells. The other is a non-embryonic stem cell. You have one more, and that is known as IPSC. Fine. So what is an embryonic stem cell? These are unspecialized cells that are present in the embryo. The embryo is an 8-cell. For example, you have an 8-cell stage embryo. जिसमें सिर्फ अभी 8 cell ही है. These 8 cells will multiply and differentiate into forming the entire body of the child, body of the infant. Now, these 8 cells or these 6 cells or 12 cells, all these cells are embryonic stem cells. Fine. So embryonic stem cells are totipotent stem cells. That means they have the capacity to form all of the cell types. They have the capacity to differentiate, to multiply into all of the cell types, all of the cells of the organs in the body. Second, you have non-embryonic stem cells. These are the stem cells that are actually not present in an embryo, but they are present in an adult. They are also known as adult stem cells. They are also known as adult stem cells. For example, you have pluripotent stem cell. Pluripotent stem cell are actually those stem cells that have the capacity to form many of the cell types, that have the capacity to form many of the cell types. These are actually present in our umbilical cord. Then you have oligopotent stem cells. Oligopotent stem cells have the capacity to form a few of the cell types, only few of the cell types. Say, for example, the stem cells that are found in the bone marrow, they are actually oligopotent stem cells. They can actually form different cell types, ranging from platelets, ranging from WBCs, RBCs. All these are different types of few kinds of cells that are formed by the oligopotent stem cells. They cannot form many of the cell types. They can only form few of the cell types. Second, you have unipotent stem cells. Unipotent stem cells are only and only able to perform multiply into one cell type. For example, epidermal cells. Epidermal stem cells are known as unipotent. They can only and only divide into the formation of skin cells. Fine. Epidermal cells only form skin cells. Fine. So these are your stem cells. Now, if you actually realize that this pluripotent stem cell and this totipotent stem cell are very important stem cells. Why? Because you can use these stem cells and you can create any of the organs that you want. Fine. If you want to create a kidney, you want to create a heart, you just need a stem cell and you would actually be able to 3D print. You will actually be able to bioprint your organ that you want. Fine. Now, that in that sense, we would actually require a lot of stem cells in our formation, to use these stem cells in formation of these organs. Now, the important thing is we would not be able to get these stem cells. Why? Because they are present in the embryo. So what have we decided is we have taken a normal cell of a human being, normal cell, and we have genetically reprogrammed it. We have genetically reprogrammed it to become a stem cell. We have taken a normal stem cell and reprogrammed it to make a stem cell. You just take a stem cell and you see what is the different configuration sequence of the bases. You copy the sequence in the normal cell, you genetically reprogram it, and you will be able to make a stem cell of your own. And this stem cell is known as IPSC, that is induced pluripotent stem cell. This is the stem cell that has the capacity to form many of the cell types. And now you can use this IPSC cell, which is now genetically reprogrammed. For example, this person, this is me here, my kidney has failed and I want a new kidney for myself. What I would do is I would give my normal cell, genetically reprogrammed it, and make it a stem cell that will be known as IPSC. Now it has a capacity of forming many of the cell types. I will use this stem cell for the formation of kidney and take this kidney and put it in my body. Fine. So it is actually used for the formation of organs. Fine. Why do I need to make a kidney out of my own cell? Why? Because it will avoid immune rejection. It would avoid immune rejection. There will be no rejection because it is my own cell. If the formation has happened from my own cell, so there is no immune rejection by the organs made up of IPSC. This is the concept known as regenerative medicine. We call it regenerative medicine. Now that is the concept of regenerative medicine. Now, what are consider the following statements regarding IPSC? They are adult stem cells that have genetically been reprogrammed to an embryonic stem cell like state. Absolutely right. You take a normal cell, adult cell, and you reprogram it to a stem cell. Fine. That is absolutely correct statement. Tissues derived from IPSC are more likely to avoid rejection by the immune system. Absolutely right. Both are correct. Option 3. Then you have Human Genome Project, a very classic project, Human Genome Project. It was meant to actually sequence the entire human genome. What is a genome? Genome is actually a set of all genes in our body. Set of all genes in our body. That is genome, human genome. So we have almost 20 to 30,000 genes in our body, and these genes are present in our DNA. And this DNA has a sequence. This is the sequence which may be like A, T, C, A, G, G. Like this sequence is actually we have 300 crores base sequences, that is 3 billion sequences in our one DNA, and one DNA has 3 billion sequences, and these sequences, in these sequences, there are some sequences that give us some particular trait that are held in the formation of some proteins, some specific proteins. Those sequences are known as genes, and the set of all genes are known as genome. Now, this Human Genome Project was actually a project meant to sequence all the genome of the humans, to sequence all the genomes, to actually be able to have this formula, to be able to have this coding of our DNA. And this code is responsible for the formation of humans, for the formation of intelligent beings like us, or the other species as well. Now, this coding, this sequencing was done in the Human Genome Project. Fine. This is known as genome sequencing. And when you have, for example, if I tell you what is the spelling of space. Suppose I say the spelling of space is this. Now you would say, sir, no, this is not the spelling of space. Why? Because the spelling of space is like this, SPACE. How are you able to actually detect that there has been some error? Then you are able to detect it. Why? Because you already know the correct spelling. You already know the correct spelling. So to actually demarcate a wrong spelling, you would actually want to have a correct spelling in place. So you would want the DNA की आप असल में पूरी जो करेक्ट सीक्वेंस है उसको आप निकालिए, उसको आप स्टोर कीजिए, फिर जाके किसी में अगर जेनेटिक डिफेक्ट होगा, if there is a genetic defect, if there is a altered sequence, you will be able to demarcate it कि यहाँ पे कुछ गड़बड़ हुई है, क्योंकि आपने उसको यहाँ से कंपेयर करके बताया कि यहाँ पर कुछ प्रॉब्लम हुई है, यहाँ पे कुछ डिफेक्ट हुआ है, यहाँ पे बेस सीक्वेंस बदल गई है. फाइन. That is why DNA sequence की वजह से we are able to now actually detect all the genetic defects. We are able to do the gene testing. We are able to do the gene therapy, in which you will use these molecular scissors like CRISPR-Cas9, and you will correct the sequence जहाँ पर वो खराब हो गई है. Now this can be used to treat cancer or all the genetic defects that we have. So the HGP, the Human Genome Project, the objective is to determine the DNA sequence of the entire human genome to understand the diseases like cancer and other genetic defects. It was done by CSIR? No, it was done by National Institute of Health in the United States. So the only statement that is correct is one, that is one only, okay? Now, it was done by National Institute of Health, USA, in collaboration with Department of Energy. That was your Human Genome Project. It was done by the president of this project was Francis Collins. And when he actually realized the remarkable structure of DNA and remarkable sequence of DNA that is actually responsible for the behavior of humans, and that is actually responsible for the creation of life itself, he actually got so influenced that he actually became a believer in God. Then question number 54. Question number 54 is regarding somatic cell nuclear transfer. It is a technology that is used for cloning process. Now see, what is a somatic cell nuclear transfer? Somatic cell nuclear transfer simply means that you want to make a clone of yourself. Say, for example, this is a cow. We actually want to have a clone of this cow. Why? Because this cow is getting young, or this is some of the other species. It is an endangered species. We want to increase the number of this species. Fine. Or you want to have more of these cows because they actually generate a lot of milk. Whatever be the reason, if you want to increase the number of this species, what you want to take, you just need a somatic cell. You just need her somatic cell. आपने वहां से एक somatic cell ली. Somatic cell के अंदर जो nucleus है, the nucleus has all, suppose if it's a cell of a human, so humans के अंदर somatic cell has all 46 chromosomes, right? Now it has all the DNA that is of this cow. Now this somatic cell is actually, it has a nucleus inside it, and we take out this nucleus, we remove the nucleus which contains all the genetic material, and then we have an egg donor which gives us an egg, and this egg also has nucleus inside it, but we do not want the we do not want the DNA material or the chromosomes of this donor. We actually remove the egg from that, and we take this nucleus, enter it into this donor egg cell, and this donor egg cell is then starts the division, and it forms the embryo, and embryo will actually be transferred into the surrogate mother. This is embryo transfer technology, and this surrogate mother will give birth to the clone of exactly the person from which we took the somatic cell. Fine. This is the cloning process that is done. This is somatic cell nuclear transfer, in which you actually take the somatic cell of the donor, you take the nucleus out of it, and you put that nucleus in the donor egg cell, which is an enucleated egg cell, जहाँ पर कोई भी nucleus नहीं होता. You take the donor nucleus and you put that into the donor egg cell, and the donor egg cell starts dividing. It forms an embryo. Embryo is transferred into the surrogate mother. Surrogate mother will give birth to the clone. Okay. Now this is somatic cell nuclear transfer. अब जब आपका ये embryo बना, this embryo will have stem cells in it, right? This have stem cells in it. So therefore, somatic cell nuclear transfer is used for cloning, but it is also used for stem cells. It is also used for making organs. It is also used for making organs because stem cells are totipotent stem cells and they can form any of the organs they want. Therefore, these totipotent stem cells can be used for the formation of organs as well. Therefore, stem cell technology की application कौन-कौन सी है? First is stem cell research. Somatic cell nuclear transfer can be used for stem cell research. Absolutely right. It can be used for the cloning of animals. Absolutely right. It can be used for interspecies nuclear transfer. क्या आप एक species से दूसरे species में nuclear transfer कर सकते हैं? Absolutely. We have already done that. We have already done that. Fine. Then you have organ transplants. Can you form? Can you actually? Will it help in the formation of organs and transplantation of organs? Absolutely right. All of the statements are correct. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then you have another statement that is statements regarding chromosomes. And for this chromosomes, the first statement is among organisms with prokaryotic cells, chromosomes consist entirely of DNA. In prokaryotic cells, does the chromosome have DNA? And in chromosomes of eukaryotic cell, does it contain DNA and RNA? For that, you need to understand the prokaryotes and the eukaryotes. Prokaryotic cells are very simple cells. They are very simple cells, which are actually so simple that there is not even a nuclear membrane inside them. Fine. So they actually contain only DNA. There is DNA present in them. There is no RNA. But this is a eukaryotic cell. It is a more complex form of cell. It has a nucleus membrane, and inside the nucleus membrane there is nucleus, and this nucleus contains DNA. Fine. It also contains RNA. It also contains RNA. So DNA and RNA is both present in the eukaryotic cells, and these eukaryotic cells are actually responsible for the formation of plants and animals and us. We actually all have eukaryotic cells inside us. These prokaryotic cells are present in bacteria and blue-green algae. Fine, these are very simple cells. Now, what is the concept? The concept is among the prokaryotic cells, the chromosome consists entirely of DNA. Absolutely right. Among the eukaryotic cells, the chromosomes have DNA and RNA. Absolutely right. Both are correct. Option 3. Then we have RFID technology, radio frequency identification. RFID. This is a simple technology. It uses radio waves, and it is actually it has a range of some meters. It can be a few meters. It has a range of few meters. It can actually be able to send and receive the signal across a few meters, as well as it does not need to be in the direct line of sight. Suppose आपका target यहाँ पर है और आप खुद यहाँ पर है, so आपको अगर बीच में कोई और component भी है and यहाँ से आपकी signal if you are actually not in the direct line of sight, आप कहीं और पे है और यहाँ पर एक दूसरा है जो direct line of sight में है, ये direct line of sight में भी काम करता है और अगर आपकी direct line of sight नहीं है वहाँ पर भी काम करता है. Fine. So in such a scenario, RFID is now being used for collecting the tolls. Fine, जो tolls हम लेते हैं उसमें RFID का tag होता है. वो जैसे ही अंदर आता है RFID से खुद पैसे निकल जाते हैं और उनके अकाउंट में चले जाते हैं, जिसकी वजह से RFID is actually now facilitating the transit of vehicles from one place to another quite fast. Now RFID technology has a range of few centimeters. No, it has a range of few meters. RFID tag needs to be within direct line of sight. No, it is not necessary for it. It can be outside the direct line of sight also. Which of the following is not correct? Both of them are not correct. Therefore, answer option 3 is the right answer. Then you have the concept about ballistic missiles. You need to know what ballistic missiles are. Our ballistic missiles have ballistic path. There are 3 phases in their path. This is a ballistic missile. This is a ballistic missile which has a ballistic path. Okay. Now the first path in here is a forward phase. We call it a forward phase. This is the first phase. Then we have a free flight phase of the ballistic missile. Then we have re-entry phase. Why a re-entry phase? Because this ballistic missile goes outside the atmosphere. It actually travels in the space and then re-enters the atmosphere to hit the target. Now the target has to be fixed. If the target is mobile, then the ballistic missile will actually lose its target. Now this is the ballistic missile that has a forward phase. then it has a free flight phase, and then the re-entry phase. And the re-entry phase, in the re-entry phase is the highest velocity of the ballistic missile. Now, what are the ballistic missiles of India? Indian ballistic missiles are actually Dhanush. Dhanush is a ballistic missile of India. India has another ballistic missile, Shaurya. Shaurya is a ballistic missile of India. India has Agni. India has Prithvi. India has Akash. All these are ballistic missiles of India. Fine. And now, what are the cruise missiles? What are the cruise missiles? Cruise missiles are simply that do not have an exo-atmosphere flight, that actually travel close to the Earth's surface. Now, this is a cruise missile. The entire phase is a forward phase. The entire phase is a forward phase. Now, that is a cruise missile. And Indian cruise missiles are like BrahMos. BrahMos have been developed by India and Russia, Russian space agency Roscosmos. So BrahMos actually is derived from two words, Brahmaputra and Moskva River of Russia. That is your BrahMos 1, and then we have the development of BrahMos 2. Now we are developing BrahMos next generation, that is BrahMos NG. Okay. Again, you have Nirbhay. Nirbhay is again a cruise missile of India. Fine. So, which of the following examples are the examples of ballistic missile? So, Dhanush and Shaurya is a ballistic missile, option 1 and 4. Okay. Now, Dhanush has a range of 350 kilometers. It can carry a payload of 1000 kgs. Shaurya has a range of 700 kilometers. It can carry a payload of, that is weapon, of 1000 kgs. BrahMos has a range of 450 kilometers. It is a cruise missile. It is a cruise missile, that is supersonic missile. BrahMos 1 is a supersonic missile, and BrahMos 2 is a hypersonic missile. And BrahMos 2 is actually using scramjet engine. It has a scramjet engine inside it. Nirbhay is a cruise missile with 1000 range, and the option 1 is correct. Then we have another very important concept, that is the messenger RNA. And messenger RNA आपको समझना है. Say for example, this is your DNA here, and this is the nucleus. Say for example, this is the nucleus in here. Nucleus के अंदर आपका DNA होता है. DNA has all the information of your body. Fine, सारा information आपके DNA में होता है. Now you should know that DNA में के अंदर information होती है. वो information nucleus के अंदर होती है. Fine, it's present inside the nucleus, and this information is actually the information that we actually need for amino acids to combine. When the amino acids will combine, they will actually lead to the formation of proteins, and proteins actually lead to the formation of cells, and cells lead to the formation of tissues, and tissues create organs, and organs create body. So to form the bodies, we should have the information how the amino acids should combine to form the proteins. Fine. Now this amino acid, the combination of amino acids to form the proteins, this information is present in DNA, but DNA is present inside the cell, but the amino acids are present in the cytoplasm. They are present in the cytoplasm outside the nucleus. DNA is present inside the nucleus. Now, how does the information goes from the nucleus to outside the nucleus? This information is carried by messenger RNA. This is carried by messenger RNA. So when DNA gives information to messenger RNA, this is known as DNA transcription. We call it DNA transcription. And when mRNA gives this information to amino acids, this is known as DNA translation. This is known as DNA translation. And the entire process is known as the central dogma of molecular biology. We call it the central dogma of molecular biology. Fine. Now, this is what is mentioned here. DNA is present in the nucleus. It gives the messenger RNA. Messenger RNA goes to the amino acids. It combines the amino acids. Now, amino acids combine to form proteins, and then the process begins. Fine. So, what was the question? It is a double-stranded. Is a messenger RNA double-stranded? No, RNA is always single-stranded. DNA is double-stranded. Fine, DNA is double-stranded. Now, it is a double-stranded molecule naturally present in all our cells. No, it's a single-stranded. It carries the instruction for making proteins from our genes located in the cell nucleus to the cytoplasm, the main body of our cell. Absolutely right. This is a correct statement. Then you have both Covishield and Covaxin use mRNA vaccines. Wrong. Covishield and Covaxin uses inactivated vaccine, killed vaccine. These are killed vaccine. They use pathogens. Covishield and Covaxin uses pathogens. If you have to look at the mRNA vaccines, then Pfizer is an mRNA vaccine. If you have Moderna is an mRNA vaccine. Fine. These are mRNA vaccines and these are pathogen vaccines. Now, this is correct. This is correct. Wrong. The only statement correct is 2. Fine, you have to say which of the following is not correct. So not correct is 1 and 3, option 2. Okay, moving again forward, you have considered the following statements regarding dark matter. You know, in the universe, you have the stars, and the stars has a solar system or the star system. This star is present in the galaxy. In the galaxy, these galaxies, you have almost 100 billion stars in one particular galaxy. 100 billion stars are present in one galaxy, and such galaxies are present 100 billion galaxies in the universe. Fine, there are more than 100 billion galaxies in the universe, and each galaxy has 100 billion stars. All of these stars and all of these galaxies and all of these planets are actually known as observable matter. They are known as observable normal matter. This is the normal matter of the universe. This is the normal matter of the universe, which is only 5% of the actual universe. All of the galaxies, 100 billion galaxies, with all of the stars in them, 100 billion stars in each of these 100 billion galaxies, all of this matter is actually only 5% of the actual universe. What is the other 95%? In this 95%, there is 75%. The 75% is dark energy. This dark energy, it is known as the quintessence. It is actually named as the quintessence, as the fifth force of nature. Quintessence is the dark energy, 75% of the universe, and then the remaining 20% is the dark matter. This dark matter, we have detected this dark matter. We have not yet observed this matter, but we have detected the influence of dark matter on the motion of galaxies and the motion of stars across the black holes. Now, all these dark matter has an influence on the stars, has an influence on the normal matter, and the total in the total 100% universe, 5% is the normal matter, 20% is the dark matter, 75% is the dark energy, that is known as quintessence. Now, it constitutes consider the following statements regarding dark matter. It constitutes nearly 4/5 of the matter of the universe. 4/5 means 20%. Absolutely right. The first statement is correct. It does not interact with visible spectrum of electromagnetic radiation. Absolutely right. Why? Because I already told you we have not detected, we have not yet observed the dark matter. Why? Because it does not interact with the visible light. Therefore, we actually have not been able to observe the dark matter, but we have seen its influence, how the dark matter creates a gravitational influence on the bodies like galaxies and stars. It interacts with the rest of the universe through its gravity, because it's matter. Matter always has gravity and bends light around the galaxies. That is known as gravitational lensing. This is absolutely right. Gravitational lensing also leads to Einsteinian ring. Einsteinian ring. You just check it out, and the option that is correct is all the three. That is 1, 2, and 3. Option 4. Then you have regarding neutrinos. Neutrinos already pad liya humne. Is it the most widely occurring particle? No. A photon is the most widely occurring particle. Neutrino is the second most widely occurring particle. So the first statement is wrong. Second, they are weakly interacting elementary subatomic particles. Absolutely right. They do not interact, that much with the normal matter. They have little mass and nearly massless. Absolutely right. They are nearly massless and they do not interact with the normal matter. 2 and 3 is correct. So the option is option 3, 2 and 3. Okay. Moving again forward, Bose-Einstein condensate, is it a fifth state of matter? Absolutely right. How it is formed? You just take the normal matter and you bring it down to near absolute zero temperatures, and then you'll get the Bose-Einstein condensate. You actually have a lot of states of matter. If you talk about the 4 fundamental states of matter, there is solid, liquid, gas, and plasma. Plasma is the 4th fundamental state of matter. But if you look at low temperature states, you have other states of matter also. Suppose you have superfluid, you have Bose-Einstein condensate, you have fermionic condensate, you have Rydberg molecule made up of Rydberg atoms. So Rydberg atoms are actually considered the 6th state of matter. You have quantum Hall state, you have photonic matter, you have dropleton. All these are low temperature states. When you take the normal matter and you bring it down to low, absolute zero, and even less than that, you'll have these low temperature states in the matter. Then you have high energy states. You have degenerate matter that is seen in the stars. You have quark matter. You have color glass condensate. And then there are other proposed states. We have not yet detected it, but these are the proposed states. Suppose the super solid, there is stringnet liquid, there is super glass. These are some proposed states of matter. Now, regarding the question is regarding Bose-Einstein condensate, is it the 5th state of matter? Absolutely right. It is formed when the atoms of certain elements are cooled to near absolute zero. Absolutely right. Both are correct, both 1 and 2. Okay, moving again forward. We have ISRO's Fat Boy, which is an ISRO's Fat Boy. ISRO's Fat Boy is known as GSLV Mark III. Fine. When we were actually planning our rocket launches, we came up with SLV, and then we discontinued it. Then we came up with ASLV, then we discontinued it. Then we come up with Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, PSLV, which has various variants: PSLV Core Alone, PSLV XL, PSLV G Generic, PSLV 3S. These are some PSLV variants. Then we came up with GSLV Geosynchronous Launch Vehicle. It has 3 variants: GSLV Mark 1, GSLV Mark 2, GSLV Mark 3. GSLV Mark 1 was made. It is a 3-stage rocket. It is a 3-stage rocket. PSLV is a 4-stage rocket. And this GSLV uses 3 stages. The first stage is solid, second is liquid, and third is cryogenic stage. The liquid stage uses the Vikas liquid engine, and the cryogenic stage uses the cryogenic engine. The first Mark 1 GSLV Mark 1 uses the cryogenic engine from Russia. It used the cryogenic engine from Russia. Mark II used the cryogenic engine that was indigenously developed, known as cryogenic engine 7.5. So it had an indigenously developed cryogenic engine. And Mark III used the India's strongest cryogenic engine, that is cryogenic engine 20, that is used in the GSLV Mark III. It is ISRO's Fat Boy. It is considered ISRO's Fat Boy. That is the strongest rocket of ISRO. Fine. Now this is it a 4-stage heavy lift rocket? No, it is a 3-stage heavy lift rocket. Fine. So first statement is wrong. Its capacity is more than thrice the capacity of Mark II. No, its capacity is more than twice the capacity of Mark II. So second statement also wrong. It can enable India to send manned missions to space. Absolutely right. If you want to send a human space flight, for the human space flight, the basic technology that you should have is of GSLV Mark III. That is India's Fat Boy. So third statement is correct. Option 4, 3 only. Then you have the last question, that is graphene. It is an allotrope of carbon and is used in many space equipments. Which of the following is correct about graphene? Now graphene आपका ऐसा दिखता है. This is your graphene. इसमें आपके carbon atoms है, and it is a sheet of carbon atoms which is only 1 atom thick. इसमें thickness is only about 1 atom. And when you take this sheet of graphene and you actually make a curl and you make a tube of it, this tube is known as then carbon nanotubes. Fine. These are nanoparticles that have immense application in each of the sectors that we have. For example, medicine, agriculture, space exploration, water pollution, air pollution, etc. These are the carbon nanotubes that are made from the curling of the sheets of graphene. Now these carbon nanotubes can be of single wall, they can be multi-wall. Now this is your graphene. It is a single layer carbon atom. Absolutely right. It has low electron mobility. No, it has high electron mobility. It has a proper, it has a characteristic that it can actually, the electron mobility is quite high in the graphene. That is why it conducts electricity quite fast. That it has a high electric conductivity and high thermal stability. Absolutely right. Fine. The second statement is wrong, and third statement is right. It does not have low electron mobility. It has high electrical conductivity. Fine. So first statement is right and third is right. That is 1 and 3. Option 3 is correct. This is all from me. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure teaching you these things. God bless you guys, and all the best for your exams. I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you so much.